All right. I'd like to call this meeting of the Prattville Planning Commission to order. Madam Secretary, could you please call roll?
Mayor Gillespie. Here. Councilman Bowles. Chairman Smith.
Here.
Vice Chair Gardner. Chief Johnston. Here. Ms. Carpenter. Here. Mr. Hall. Here. Mr. McAuley. Here. And Mr. Nelson. Here.
All right. Our first thing is the minutes. Do we have a copy of the minutes, or are there minutes?
No minutes, sir.
All right. We will go on to old business. The sketch plan, we had a subcommittee meeting. Will you please tell us what happened with the subcommittee meeting?
Subcommittee of Mr. Smith, myself, Chief Johnson, yes, I do need to do that, met with the developer. And the concern is the front part of this is, obviously B2 and then the back part is whatever to come. And that part of it is very much in flux. And we had asked the developer for a sketch plan, as we do for all such developments, but ultimately wound up with this one, and we held it because sketch plan we need to think about another outlet from there other than Redfield Road, and but ultimately we decided that at this point in the development, the sketch plan served no real purpose. Obviously left it with the folks who are selling it, that the developer in his process will have to, at the very least, do a traffic study in terms of presenting how that outlet goes, and almost certainly is likely to require another outlet into Cobb's Ford. But for the time being, we said let's go forward with the proposal, and that's the committee's recommendation.
Mr. Duke, do you have anything to add to the discussion?
No, sir, I do not. I believe Mr. McCauley's report is accurately reflects y'all's discussion. I'm not sure if a representative is here for the Cobb Jones property. If they are, they may want to come up and address that. I do have an email from Mr. Rackus and a letter stating that they agree with everything that y'all were requesting. In fact, I can pass that out if you'd like. We just received that yesterday.
Yeah, I'll be fine.
We table that.
We had tabled it, so do we need to read it in?
No, I think it's on the record, so it's just a matter of getting it off the table. And I would propose that we take the resolution for the sketch plan of the estate of Marjorie Cobb and Dorothy Jones off the table and recommend approval.
We have a second. We have a motion and second. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Well, and this is what they've agreed to. All right. Our next order of business is the rezoning from B2 general business to R5 patio garden homes and to R4 multifamily located on McQueen Smith Road. Would the petitioner like to come forward?
Hello, I'm Greg Gillen with Larry Speaks and Associates. On behalf of the developers, we're seeking a rezoning of the property that's located basically directly behind the, I'm going to try to speak loud so that everybody can hear, directly behind the Russell Dewitt Center, behind the Jameson Inn, behind Gibson's Tire. There's a vacant lot between Gibson's Tire and the lot where the attorneys are located. And basically, this area that's shown here in a purplish color is the existing parcel that they intend to build on it first, and it's already zoned R4. So the piece that we're trying to have rezoned is located over here back to the west. It's shown in the blue. It's approximately 6.1 acres. And of the 6.1 acres, we consider about 3 acres of it usable. The wetland areas, which is delineated up here with the red and the little wetland look hatch, is approximately 1.72 acres in this ditch section through here, which is the main part of the ditch that comes in between this property and the Russell Dewitt Center, approximately 0.9 tenths of an acre. So at this time, what we're effectively seeking is the rezoning of this parcel, which basically is 3 acres of usable land. And basically, the developers intend to extend Heather Drive all the way out to McQueen Smith Road, which is the original sketch layout that this development's been in for the last 20 years or more. And we're here to answer any particular questions you might have. The developer's here to speak, to answer any questions, as is the seller, to address any particular issues that you may have questions about.
Mr. Gillen, the portion of that development that's zoned R5 and not currently built on stays as R5, is that correct?
Are you speaking of this area here that would be south of the future extension of Heather Drive?
Yes.
Yes, that would stay R5, so that basically if you go up D Drive, you would have to extend the road approximately another 150 feet, and you'd have the same type R5 development on the left side and the right side of the road. And then you would come to the T, and then you would take the left to go back out to McQueen Smith, and that whole left-hand side leading to McQueen Smith Road would also still stay R5. And if you take the right at that particular point, you have some R5, and this is R3, which would stay R3. So everything that would end up on the south side of Heather Drive would be zoned as it currently is zoned and developed as everything is currently being developed.
Can you give us some idea of how the apartments might lay out on that complex?
All right, now I'm going to switch back and forth a little bit for you. But at this point, this is the current piece that they're considering developing at this time. And all the rezoning area is actually over here to the west. And this layout connects to Heather Drive here, and this is the current end of Heather Drive, and this would be the extension of Heather Drive as it has been planned for many years. And this is the layout of a 96-unit apartment complex on approximately 10.2 acres. Now to go back to the other side, that same piece that you're looking at there is actually this piece, and it follows the blue line here, and it's all within this particular area right here.
Where does the entrance hit into Heather Drive? About there?
Right
Okay.
there.
Yes, go ahead.
If the other area is rezoned, how many apartment units will be total, in addition to what's
I
currently?
have not seen a particular layout on that, but Mr. Tom may be able to answer that question.
That's 64 units.
Okay, question, is that 64 units in addition to the other 98?
Yes, that's correct.
Apartments.
Is that the total with the 64 units right there, or is that,
It's the 96 units on the original layout,
okay.
and it's 64 additional units on that future piece, the piece that we're trying to.
Okay, and so that's the one with the 64 units, right? That's the whole, how many total units would that be?
96 plus
96 units there,
64,
okay, that's gonna be
160, if I'm doing
160?
my math.
Okay,
Yes, 160.
Watch me on that.
that's fine, I got you. And so that would be the whole,
And each of these apartment units would have their own individual access.
At this point, that is the current layout. Again, those are some things that we get to discuss during the
Sure.
development plan process, and usually you require interconnectivity for streets and
Correct.
thoroughfares, and I assume that discussion may come up at a later date.
It will.
are there any other questions from Mr. Gillen?
I have a question. You're talking about two different units right here. Two different units, apartments.
They're all apartments, it's just, this would be our first phase.
First phase.
First phase, and this would be the second phase.
And that's
The
90
second
something,
phase would be dependent on the rezoning also.
or depending on the rezoning. That
Yes,
was,
it would
that
have
was
to be
front on,
rezoned.
on McQueen Smith Road, is that correct?
Say that again, sir?
Was that front on McQueen Smith Road or on the other side?
It would front on Heather Drive, and then once you get to Heather Drive, you would drive out directly to the west.
Oh, none of this fronts on, McQueen Smith Road?
That's correct. As you can see here, this is McQueen Smith Road. This is the
Okay.
property in question, and it's behind Gibson's Tire.
Now, the area south of that, I'm looking, the area lower under there, is that zoned, family residences under that?
Here in the white,
Yes.
yes, this is currently zoned R5, and it would stay R5. So
Okay.
everything that's on the south of R5, on the south of Heather Drive would remain as that current zoning is set up for.
Now, who owns that property?
Aronoff.
Okay, they're not gonna come back here a year or so now and wanna build apartments on that side, are they?
I would say no, because in my opinion, there's not enough room for anything of that nature.
That's your opinion.
This area that we're talking about is a very thin layer, and it basically lays out just like the remaining lots here, depth-wise.
In other words,
But again, they would have to answer that question, but that was just my opinion.
that's your
I don't think
professional
there's enough room.
opinion,
Yes.
or just your professional opinion?
Educated guess, professional opinion, about the same.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
One more question. I guess this is more for the developer than for you, Mr. Gillum, but what kind of apartments is this? You know, regular, subsidized? What's the plan? Yes.
The answer is they're affordable apartments. These are, they're not subsidized in the conventional way. What we do is a form of financing called housing tax credits. And those housing tax credits, in exchange for getting those, we keep the units affordable to people at low to moderate incomes. So the basic income range for the folks in both developments would be a minimum of about $21,000 a year to $42,000 a year.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will give you an opportunity to speak. You are going to have a chance to speak to us, and we are here to listen to you. But at this time, allow the petitioner to state his facts in this case.
The rents would be set at about $550 for one bedroom, $650 for two bedrooms, $750 for a three bedroom. Would you like my statement now or later?
Do y'all have anything else from Mr. Gillum?
Let's get on to it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Tom Gladys, Vice President for Business Development of TBG Residential, an apartment development, construction, and management company based in Atlanta, Georgia. We have a portfolio of about 1,300 units located in the Southeast and Midwest. TBG is a family-owned business, been in existence for over 40 years, and currently headed by Mr. Kevin Buckner. We are committed to serving the housing needs of the local community with high-quality, professionally managed, energy-efficient, affordable apartment homes that feature full amenities typically only offered in much higher-cost developments. In the packages that I asked the clerk to circulate to you are photographs of one of our most recently completed properties, Farmington Hills in Winder, Georgia, and is representative of the type of community that we propose to develop in Prattville. Last month, our company, MHL Incorporated, entered into an agreement with the Aronoff Group to purchase approximately 18 acres located east of McQueen Smith, just south of the Cobbs Ford intersection. Originally, our intention was to buy only that portion of the property already zoned R4 for a 96-unit apartment community to be known as Rochester Hills, which is shown on the attached plan drawing. Eventually, we came to an agreement that we would purchase all of the property north of a proposed Heather Drive extension except for that portion owns B2 with the frontage on McQueen Smith Road. And those portions south of Heather Drive zoned R5 and R3 that would be sold to a single-family developer. As it's our business to develop and own apartment communities, we immediately began the process of applying for rezoning of the property currently zoned R5 and B2 so that we might develop it as a future phase 2 to the Rochester Hills community. We feel that our proposal is consistent with good planning and land use practices and that we understood to be the city's long-term plan for the area. Our plan includes extending Heather Drive because, again, we understood that there was a city requirement for any future development and that it had been basically planned for over 20 years. It is also our best access to the Rochester Hills site due to the physical barrier presented by a ravine and a concrete flume that runs along the northern boundary of the property. Our plan also allows the property south of Heather Drive to remain single family and provide a large buffer to the existing homeowners and an opportunity for more development of single family homes. Finally, the consolidation of the different zoning districts into R4 allows for a more coherent and predictable land use pattern that creates an even larger buffer between the residential development and the commercial buildings along Cobb's Ford Road. Finally, it will eliminate the possibility of a less desirable development in the B2 portion and creates an opportunity to do a second phase of what we believe will be a successful development in Rochester Hills, or even possibly an age-restricted community for seniors, depending on that market. I want to stress here that the plan for developing phase 2 has not been finalized and would be at least 2 years out from where we are today. On the Rochester Hills development, it would take probably about 2 years before that project was actually completed and ready for leasing. I hope this gives you a better understanding of who we are and what we hope to do by acquiring and rezoning this property. I think you'll find that we have an excellent reputation in our industry and have built strong, lasting relationships with our partners and our residents. Our goal is to provide our residents with high-quality, affordable rental housing in the best possible locations, and we look forward to being a part of the Prattville community for a long time to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Duke?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. What I would like to do at this point is clarify exactly what is being requested. You've heard from Mr. Gillen, Mr. Gladys, about what is proposed, and in that discussion there is a good bit of additional to what was actually before you today. It's certainly relevant. It certainly should be a part of the consideration, but I need to make sure that you're on record, that we're on record about exactly what is being requested. Mr. Gillen stated that there is existing R4 property, and Mr. Gladys talked about their first phase, which would be on that existing R4 property. What is required to obtain a building permit to build on that property is completion of subdivision layout, and which would come back before this body, and then presentation of a building permit application to the planning department for review by the building department, fire department, engineering, to see if it meets city codes. If it does meet city codes, then a building permit would be released for that project. A rezoning is not required for construction of apartments on the R4 that presently exists at the end of Heather Drive. The rezoning application that's before you is for the approximately 6 acres that is to the west of the existing R4 property. That property is currently zoned, as Mr. Gillen stated, partially R6, I apologize, R5 and B2. The R5 being patio garden homes, which would be similar to the properties that were built on D Drive and the 2 cul-de-sacs that come off of D Drive. And then the remainder of that would be B2, which is general business. And that property backs up to Gibson Tire and the Dollar General, the Jameson Inn, and other commercial properties there on Cobb's Ford Road. It's been stated, and I'll certainly state it again, that the zoning here is a part of a master plan that was first presented by Aronoff Development in the early 90s, was approved by the City Council in 1992. The sketch plan that laid out the streets and showed connections first at Terra Drive to McQueen Smith Road, and then an extension of Heather Drive to McQueen Smith Road. That was approved also initially in 1992 and further revised in 1997. There was one other change to that sketch plan, and that was to allow for the division of the Dollar General property somewhere around 2003. At this time, Mr. Chair, I will be glad to answer any questions concerning the context of this rezoning. Any questions of a general nature, I think it'd be appropriate to wait until after the public hearing and your discussion to get into this a little further.
Any questions for Mr. Duke? Yes, sir.
In other words, Mr. Duke, this property is already zoned.
The,
There's no zoning for us to do. Is that correct?
Mr. Nelson, the portion that is been asked not to get too far from the mic, so
Yeah,
I'll try
right.
not to.
Go
The
ahead.
portion that's shown here in purple on Mr. Gillen's map is currently zoned R4. And
Right.
that is where the proposed 96 units would be built. The same developer is proposing to take the area that's shown in the blue,
Right.
which is currently zone B2 and R5, and also zone that R4. So that proposal to change the blue to the same as the existing R4 is what's before you.
Okay.
But we don't see, we only see the B2 that's in question, is that right? You're not going to change the R5? Or is there anything in blue R5?
B2's in the blue.
B2 is only
This section is B2, and this section right here
is R5? Okay.
There is,
There is some, I see it now.
The dashed line here is roughly the division between B2 and R5. There's the small triangular piece, and the reason it's laid out that way is in the initial sketch plan, there was to be more patio garden homes built, and this road connection actually would have come just a little further north. And there was a road that came out to the Cosworth Road that was removed in 1997. That change in the sketch plan created a kind of a change in the proposed uses, but Aronoff did not pursue a rezoning at that time.
If it remained B2, just so we all understand, what could be put there?
Yes, sir. I'll, just for clarification, I'll read exactly what the zoning ordinance states. It says, in a B2 district, any retail or wholesale business or service not specifically restricted or prohibited, including major auto repair, funeral homes, places of amusement and assembly, business recycling facilities, community recycling facilities, and community recycling receptacles, any use permitted in a B1 district. And then there's also a list of those that are allowed upon appeal. One of those that would be a use allowed upon appeal would be apartments, as well as dry cleaners, laundries, minor manufacturing facilities. So those uses are currently allowed in the B2 zoning.
Apartments in B2?
Apartments are allowed upon appeal to the Board of Adjustment. So if the Board of Adjustment saw that this was an appropriate location, then they could possibly have apartments there on the current B2 property.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Duke? Oh, yes, sir.
If you don't mind, Mr. Gregg, is there any way you could back that up against the wall, and that way maybe the audience could see it a little bit better? And then for clarity, the R4 that's on there now, if you'll point at it. Now, right today, somebody could go out there and start building apartments after they acquired the permits. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That,
Which is-
in an R4 district, apartments are allowed, as we call it, by right, meaning that all they have to do is comply with city's building codes. And
Okay.
the other portions of the zoning ordinance that require a certain amount of parking, a certain amount of landscaping, setback distances from the property line. But the use is an allowed use. That doesn't require any additional action by
Right.
this body or by the city council.
But what they're proposing, sounds like to me, is that R4 areas where they're already proposing the 96 unit apartments.
Yes, sir.
But
That's
what's
my
before us today, property before us today is the bluish area to change from one zoning to another to allow them for the additional 64 units.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
That's to add the 6 acres to the existing roughly 13 acres of R4.
Okay, I just feel like I need to throw that out there
Yes,
for
sir.
clarity.
And there's only 3 of those acres are buildable.
That appears to be the case based on Mr. Gillen's report about wetlands on the northern part of the site, that there's limited use of that additional 6 acres. Now, I point that out as being what's reported. It's certainly not something that's been verified, but I have no reason to doubt that.
And again, regardless of our vote, how many,
96
the 96 units can be built tomorrow or anytime they get ready to build them, that we really don't have a say in that matter.
What will come back before you is the actual division of the property, and any roads that would serve the site would have to be dealt with under the city's subdivision regulations. That would require, a sketch plan is already in place, so that would require a preliminary plat and final plat by this body. But once that had been taken care of, it's really a simple matter of presenting application for a building permit.
And they would have to show where they would improve the road going out, what was it, Heather Drive?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And that would come before us, but they have by right to build the 96 units?
They actually have, that by right, they have actually the ability to build at a higher density than that. Okay, they could, I apologize, we haven't done the exact calculation, and some of that has to do with the amount of usable property on the site and parking required and landscaping setbacks are required, but certainly they could build vertically and add additional density to that site. So to state it correctly, there could be more than 96 units on that R4 property, but what they are proposing is 96 units.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Duke? Yes, sir.
Can everybody hear in the back? I know that I've seen some of you straining and looking. We need to talk as loud as we can. Thank you.
Can y'all hear me? Okay. I'll try to talk as loud as I can. What we are discussing is that the 96 units can be built regardless of what we vote on today. It's that by their right as R4, that they can build those 96 units. They can build more by the density of the property, but right now before us is changing to the B2, and of that 6 acres, 3 acres is buildable. Is that correct? Okay. Is there anything else from Mr. Duke? Yes, Mr. Bowles.
The layout that they're wanting to build the 96, is all of those 96 on the current R4 property? Or some of that 96 on the R5 and the other property?
And I will certainly defer to Mr. Gladys because we have not seen a formal submission, so I'm going on discussion pieces that have been presented to us and also presented to you today, but they appear to all be on the existing property. In fact, I believe would be property left over of the existing R4.
Then why are we looking at changing the zone to R4? To R4.
It's probably a better question for Mr. Gladys about why their application has been presented at this time. It is not required to build what they want to initially. I certainly defer to their discussion on this, but I believe that they may have some contractual obligation or some desire to go ahead and get that property zoned prior to closing on the property.
So they could do further building in the future, maybe?
Again, that's a good question for the
Thank you.
applicant.
Any other questions for Mr. Duke? All right now, all right, then we will open this up for a public hearing. We're all citizens of Prattville, just as you are. We are not paid to be here. We're all here because we are here to serve the city of Prattville. We're an advisory committee to the city council. That's what we do, and we're just here as citizens, and we are here because we love Prattville and we want to serve Prattville. But I would love, if anyone wants to address us, you can come up and address me, and we will listen to you. And if you wish to speak to somebody else here on the committee, we can do it. The way we do this is Ms. Morgan has a sign-in sheet. And if you would come in, sign in with Ms. Morgan, and then come up, state your name and where you live, and I will be more than happy to sit here all night and listen to you.
Mr. Chair, one other
Yes, sir.
item. If we just make sure that we keep it right here at the microphone.
Absolutely.
As you know, these sessions are recorded, and
Okay.
If you walk off, as some of us already have, towards these displays, then your comments will not be captured on the mic.
Okay. We have somebody that has signed in already. You can.
May I have a point of privilege?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to recognize our state representative, Paul Beckman. He is here today. Notice our County Commissioner Sid Thompson is here, and then also City Councilor Clyde Chalmers is here. And, of course, we have Ray Bowles sitting up here and myself. But besides that, the rest of this body, is stated before, is a volunteer. And then they are very dedicated because previously, in some of the other meetings, I've actually presented a commendation to them, and some of our commissioners up here have been here for 20 plus years. I didn't want to go past 20 too much, but they are a dedicated body to this community. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
My name is Rob Mays. I live at 845 D Drive. And we had a meeting this past Sunday afternoon of the people of Pecan Ridge. We had about 80 there. There were also people from across McQueen Smith there. And every single person stated they didn't want this. We have several people here today that are going to address the various issues that we came up with. And I would like for you to listen to those. If we're wrong in our facts, then please let us know. But as we discussed this, it concerned us that we are going to be exposed to traffic from low apartment rentals into our neighborhood, which right now is very secure, it's very safe. That traffic, our streets are not built to handle that kind of traffic. And there are other issues, so I'm going to ask the people that have agreed to speak to come, and then I'll have a closing comment.
Who's next?
Good afternoon. My name is Todd Childers. I live at 1918 Terra Drive. And thank you for the opportunity to address everyone. We're here because we've just heard things. We don't know what is actually, this was the first time we've heard stuff, and we have questions. And that's all I have for y'all today, is that in the area, and I was tasked to address environmental and infrastructure, probably just because I said, hey, it's infrastructure, and I don't know as much about water and sewer as I've learned in the last couple of days here. In terms of the environmental, we've learned when the Walmart was put in how much of a field absorbed water, and the recent rains and stuff. That field that is right now absorbing the water, when it gets with concrete and everything, where will the runoff go? Will it affect the current residences, or how is that runoff being directed? That's one question. Do I ask all my questions and then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In our meeting that we had several residents complain about low water pressure especially in the back end of the neighborhood when there is new units added to the water system. First 96 that we understand, and then an additional 64 now that is being proposed as a future. What effect will that have on the water system for our neighborhood? For that, will the system have the adequate pressure for everything? And then the third question is, what's the current sewer capacity that we have, and will this addition, along with the other additions that have gone on recently, how does that affect the sewer capacity? And that's the questions I have.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any others?
Good afternoon.
Hello.
My name is Deborah Paget. I am a retired military Air Force, and I live at 111 Doss Court, which is a cul-de-sac right by the area that they want to build. And I've been tasked to talk about senior citizens and children in the area. I've been in my house for 12 years. I moved there because of the serenity, the quietness, not a whole lot of noise, and I really love where I live. And if anything is built in that area, which is walking distance, it's going to be a whole lot of commotion. You know, you're not going to really be safe. We have children, we have grandchildren that are out playing, and I'm not going to feel safe for them to be out there playing. And also, we have senior citizens that are right there by that area that they want to build. They're out walking around and, you know, doing their yard and feel safe. If this is built there, I mean, how safe are they going to be? You know, like I said, I've been there 12 years and I feel really safe. You know, I've been all over the world, and my plan is to stay here. But if there's going to be a whole lot of traffic in and out, it's going to be terrible. It really is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paget. Yes, sir.
Mayor,
Yeah.
committee, I'm Charles Schrichty. I'm here to represent the security and safety. And I'm just going to kind of give you guys a little jaunt of what we may be looking at in the future. I came from Charleston, South Carolina, and from Charleston Air Force Base. I work at Maxwell Air Force Base. And what was going on there, they had communities like this come in and start, the developers coming in and start developing the area around the base. I lived 6 miles from the base, and it took me, at first, just 15 minutes to get to the base. As the years went on, they continued to build these, the developers continued to build. As they continued to build, my drive time kept getting bigger and bigger. That's going to be one of the problems that we're going to have. We've already had a wreck right there at the development, a 3-car wreck. What's going to happen in the future if we keep on going? Also, in 1997, the Pecan Ridge were told that they were going to put a light up there at Terra Drive, apparently. So we need to address that too. As far as the security side of it, we need to realize too that what happened when these places, for each subdivision that moved in, the crime rate went up 0.5%. Okay, so it's only 0.5%, but as they keep going, it kept building up. So you're increasing the crime rate also, mainly if it's low income. So we need to think about that as well. And I thank you, and I hope you will consider this.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Hi.
Not coming to preach.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
My name is Eleanor Ballou. I'm a retired school teacher. I know many of you here. I live at 814 D Drive in the Pecan Ridge subdivision, and I've lived there since 1998. Am I speaking loud enough for them to hear back there? Okay. I have the same concerns that all the other citizens have, but I also have some other concerns since I represent District 1 on the Board of Education and Daniel Pratt Elementary School in particular, since that's the only school in the district. Okay? I have watched this section that I represent grow with a large number of people moving into the area. The main reason for this growth is the reputation of the schools in Autauga County, and Daniel Pratt in particular. I know this to be true because I work down at the Board of Education and I talk to people who had questions about moving into our area. Okay? I know that military families make up a large part of the growth that occurred out there, and that's true, but they're not the only people that moved into our area because of the schools. Daniel Pratt is a great school, but it does not have room for the kind of growth I can see happening. The numerous apartments already under construction at the end of McQueen Smith and the Highway 82 bypass down there are going to cause the school to be crowded. Okay? More apartments will add to the problem and will cause the level of instruction, what I'm worried about, to diminish in the classroom because of overcrowding. Also, because of the transient nature of apartment dwellers, more of the at-risk students will be added to the school population, which will cause another problems for us down at the Board of Education to handle, okay? Not that we can't, but I'm just pointing out the problems we have. That will affect not only the people who live in my subdivision, but everybody that lives in the Daniel Pratt zone, okay? There are no plans to do any building at Daniel Pratt at this time. Doing everything that might need to be done will take time. Another thing, not only will there be overcrowding in the classroom, but more buses are going to be traveling the streets over there transporting these students. Someone's already mentioned the traffic light. School buses, as you know, require more time to move into the traffic safely, to move across the road safely. Safety of the students is a very important concern. I'm concerned that the Planning Commission may not be aware of these problems that the two sets of apartments might present for our Daniel Pratt zone. I know we're only talking about one today, but I have to think of the school too, when there are two. Please give this rezoning more thought and keep the schools, the parents, and of utmost importance, the students attending Daniel Pratt in mind. Thank you.
Go ahead.
You want to ask me a question?
Well, I just want to apologize. I didn't see you out in the crowd earlier, and or else I would have recognized you. Thank you, and thank you for all your services.
You're welcome.
I knew you were going to recover from that one. I knew you would recover. Thank
Good
you.
morning, Mayor, Councilman, members of the Commission. I'm going to speak first from a self-interested standpoint, so just a minute.
Mm-hmm.
My house is right here, okay? Get this dead end.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you, I'm sorry. Amanda Sin. I'm a resident of Pecan Ridge, and I'm also a public servant. Any further questions? I apologize for not introducing myself beforehand. I get really excited when I see demonstrations and poster boards. I'm a lawyer by trade. So I live in this property here. My first question is, if this B2 is not rezoned, will they continue with the construction in R4? That's my question for the developer. And then I'll make a statement on behalf of my beloved residents in that neighborhood, most of whom are retired on my street. I am one of the younger ones, but we are all very youthful and active, and we walk and we run. I run at 4:30 in the morning. I run at 9:30 in the evening. It's a safe neighborhood. I lived in Cloverdale before moving up to Prattville in 2006. Robbed at gunpoint twice. My house was broken into. My car was broken into. And prior to that, I did live in the McGee Estates area. And before they brought the apartments in, it was a safe area. And those apartments were also low-income apartments. I beg you guys not to approve this. We have plenty of low-income housing in Prattville. We have the low-income apartments in Summer Chase. There's nothing to prevent them from becoming Section 8. You know, Prattville's got this fantastic mall that is currently vacant, but, you know, I have hopes that it will eventually attract retailers and will be a nice place to shop. Chappie's is in there now. We love Chappie's. I had lunch there today, and I can assure you that place will fill up. That part of Cobbs Ford Road is very attractive for Montgomery residents, and they're not going to want to come in to have apartments that will eventually become Section 8 in their backyard. You know, that entire Cobbs Ford Road area is great. Silver Hills is there. You've got nice homes. You know, the neighborhood is just, it's a community, and it's a safe community right now. Gosh, there are several things I want to talk about. My neighbors have made cogent statements, and they have put forth like logical reasons why you shouldn't do this. I don't have legal reasons because I can see that these are already zoned for apartments, part of it. But there is this little blue part here, I noticed, at the dead end of D Drive, and I don't know that you could build an access road over that into the apartments. So, you know, if this is going forward regardless, there are probably other entrances other than to cut right through D Drive and Heather Drive. I don't know enough about it. I'll let my engineer buddies figure that out. And like Ms. Vallot said, there are apartments being constructed just off 82. There are plenty of vacant apartments, I know because I've had friends shop them, across the way on McQueen Smith. We've got places to go. We don't need low-income apartments in this area. Gosh, you know, I don't have anything else to say, but please, please, please hear our cries and consider our arguments. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm used to opening by saying ladies and gentlemen of the court because I'm a member of the Alabama Bar. So please forgive me if I say that. I feel like I'm at home here. I'm also from Charleston. I see there's one of my neighbors I didn't even know was from Charleston. But I'm not here as a South Carolina boy today. I've lived on D Drive for about 8 years, and I've been a member of the bar here in Alabama for about 20 years. I see we've got a lot of my colleagues over here representing these folks.
Did you introduce yourself? I know you, but...
My name is David Gatch. I'm sorry. Thank you, Tim.
Okay.
My name is David Gatch, and I'm a resident on D Drive at the heart of the matter. I've met with some of my neighbors, and I've explained to them in the court system we have this concept of res judicata. It is already decided. And I'm aware that much of what we're here today was done 20 years ago, and y'all don't have a whole lot of control over what has already been decided. The question in my mind is what is not decided? What do you have control over? This is a nice neighborhood we live in, y'all. And I'll tell you, our streets are not accustomed to this kind of traffic that we're concerned about. So how can you help us? If you can, we're asking for that. My neighbors have asked me to request the appointment of a committee of the Planning Commission to work through details with residents of Pecan Ridge. And I gather you will know what that means. I practice in other areas of the law. I don't understand all this stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, what can you control? What is res judicata? What is not res judicata? Can you help us? Help us keep this a safe area. If we've got to have new roads, and I'm sure these lawyers have done a good job planning all this and planning all this out, but if we've got to have new roads, give us some safe roads. Put it in a place where you won't be routing all this traffic by these small patio homes. I mean, D Drive, you can walk across the street in 3 steps. It's a small street. Now, it's been closed for 20 years. It's one way in, one way out. And I've also read, of course, we can't stay like that. You've got to have one way in, or 2 ways in or out, or whatever. What have you already decided, and what have you not decided? whatever you haven't decided, whatever you can do to help us to keep it a safe area, please come look at the area, look at the streets, give us some help, whatever you can do that's within the law. So what's res judicata, what is not res judicata? If it hadn't been decided, y'all, help us, please. Thank you.
Oh, yes, sir.
This is for the attorney. You know, I'm 80 years old. That's an excuse for anything. Once you get 80, you get, excuse me, what does that res judicata mean to the layman?
Res judicata means, if I may say it.
Please, just talk to us.
And these gentlemen understand this concept.
Excuse me, sir. Talk to us.
Res judicata simply means it's already decided.
Why don't we just use that to start with?
Well, it sounds to me like a lot of this was done 20 years ago, and as I understand it, there's not a whole lot we can do about any of it.
Oh, yes, there is. There is.
Well, and I'm glad to know that, sir. Whatever you can do, we're asking for that help. But whatever's
I don't know if it'll help you or not, but there is something we can do.
Well, whatever is not already decided, we sure appreciate your consideration now. All these folks want to do is live in a safe place. Now, they're concerned about this going to this low-income housing. Of course they are. But low-income housing people need a place to live. We all know that. We just don't want, we want as much protection as we can get. We want to be exposed to as little crime as we have to be exposed to. We're just reasonable and prudent people. That's what we're saying, sir. Thank you.
One other thing I might add, in doing this business, we're always concerned about traffic. We're going to have traffic. College Ford Road, Main Street, each main is almost just a city street now. But if we didn't have traffic, if we used traffic for a reason not to develop, we would not be any further than Memorial Drive. So we got to grow. We got to have traffic. We got to handle it. We got to do what is best. That we know what to do, how we need to do it. So therefore, having said that, I'll just be quiet for a minute. Thank you. And still 80 years old.
Hey, thank you. I'm 61 and I'm feeling it today. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Paul Beckman. I live in 1803 Terra Drive. My partner, I'm also an attorney. My partner has a shopping center right next to Gibson's. I live in Terra Drive and been living in the same house for 33 years. And after listening to some of the testimony, I don't know whether to start putting my house up for sale or what. But I have some great concerns also as your state representative here, because I live here and I love this area and I love the people that I represent. My first question I have to ask, that I need a clarification, that this was basically done back in 1992. What were the parameters of zoning at R4 back there in 1992? Was it the fact that they were going to have $21,000 worth of homes there? Or was it the fact they were just going to list it as an R4 for multifamily purposes? That is an issue in itself, and that can be litigated. So nobody's been able to answer me that question before. The other issue that I have a concern about is we are here now discussing data in reference to the hearing, and all this new data is coming out. I've always felt that a public hearing is that we're supposed to be exposed to that data before we come up here so we can ask the pertinent questions, so we don't assume certain things. And those are things, gentlemen and ladies, that concern me, that we are now having a public hearing and we're now trying to piece together the facts, when the truth of the matter is we should be standing here discussing the facts because all the parties now have been exposed to the facts. The demographics has been changing in that area. I've lived in that area for 33 years. The problem now, what we have over on one side of McQueen, we have Mr. Sanford doing these gorgeous apartment complexes, excuse me. On the other half, going over to Cobb Ford, we have business areas. The question is, we're going to put 64 units on 6 acres. Man, in Pike County, they're selling one house for 5 acres, but we're going to put 64 units on 1 acre. The question is, how high are we going? Nobody's bothered to ask the question of the height. Are we going 3 stories? Are we going 4 stories with these units? Is it going to overshadow as far as the shopping center developments? Is it going to be able to be seen from Cobb Ford as you're coming down the highway? Is it going to be a sore spot? These issues haven't been addressed here. The other thing is, as we all know, if you've lived on that area, some portions of McQueen Smith need some serious road work. And the question is, before you even consider this, why wouldn't you bother to take care of the roads as far as the southern part that's going down on 31 when you cross over to Cobb Ford and going toward 31? This is an exit for an ingress or an egress to going to Maxwell. This place where you're also talking about doing is going to be an ingress as far as going to the interstate. The question, if you look at the demographics, if you come out on Cobb Ford, if you have to take a left turn to go into Prattville downtown, you're going to have to cut across traffic unless you plan on putting another stoplight 100 yards away from the other stoplight. Okay, then when you come on to McQueen Smith Road, if you want to take a right, that's easy, but if you want to go on 31, you're cutting cross down and you're cutting against the traffic. The last year, statistics have shown there's been 25 accidents on McQueen Smith, but yet our roads aren't being improved. I would suggest to this body that we take into consideration that the roads be first 4-laned on that southern part before even considering building something of this nature. The other thing is the schools. I understand Ms. Ballou brought it up. And has anybody bothered to discuss it with Spence Agee? How is it going to affect the traffic? How is it going to affect the student enrollment? What is it going to do? These are questions that haven't been answered. And these are questions I think we should have had before us, before we came here today to talk. So I ask you not to basically shut it down, but to answer these questions first, so we as a public can address them in an intelligent manner. And so my first question comes back to 1992. What was agreed upon? And yet nobody says all it is R4. Thank you very much.
My name is Stan Boyson, and my wife and I live at the corner of McQueen Smith and Sanford Drive. So I'm pretty much an expert on the traffic on McQueen Smith Road. Every day I can count the 150 to 200 logging trucks that run down through there and tear up the roads. So every afternoon, every weekday afternoon, the traffic heading north is backed up all the way up to Terra Road, Terra Drive, trying to get out at the light down there. So we got plenty of traffic already on McQueen Smith Road. Usually in the afternoons when we leave our house, we turn right and go down to the bypass if we're heading down to the interstate or trying to get around over to Home Depot in that area, because it's too much trouble to come out and turn left because the traffic's so bad. One thing we need to consider too is the YMCA sitting there. And the other day I come through there and there was 200 cars parked in the grass everywhere, with all the parents there with the kids' soccer practice and all that. The school buses, when they leave Daniel Pratt, they come out on McQueen Smith Road. And so you got all that too. So, and then we got the concern of our housing market dropping when they build these low-income apartments, that's what they are, low-income apartments. So I know the 96 is probably coming, but we may need to consider the road. Instead of coming out right there at Pecan Ridge, come out beside the road at Russell's, go ahead and build a bridge across the wetlands or whatever and put a light out there and send the traffic that way instead of down McQueen Smith Road, because we just built us a screened in our patio and put a little nice TV out there, and I can tell you right now it's hard to hear it because of the traffic on McQueen Smith Road. And yes, we chose to move there because in 97 when we moved there, the traffic wasn't quite as bad as it is now. But
if y'all would just consider rerouting the traffic out the other way out by Russell's, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Josh Dobbs. I live at 114 Delwood Court. I designed the power when they built Pecan Ridge. Aronoff showed me the apartments back in 90, whatever it was. They were super duper nice, the way it was described to me. There was going to be jogging trails down by the creek. Of course, all this was before they found the dead people, you know, in that fiasco. But I know I can't ask him questions, but what I would like to do is not have to move where my daughter is, not move where my son is. I'd like to kind of stay where I'm at. You can get too close to him, I've learned that. But my only question for y'all is there's always a way. I wish y'all would talk to him and see if there's any viable option on coming in off McQueen Smith and having a buffer zone. You know, there's always compromises that can be reached. And I just think there's probably a solution out there that everybody could live with. But I don't like what we're dealing with now. And I just wish y'all would consider that and see if he has any other options, because I'm sure when they drew it up, he knew we were not going to be happy campers. So, you know, I'd appreciate it if y'all could see if there's anything else that could be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Clyde Chambliss. I live at 1756 Planters Hill Court, and I'm here today in my capacity as a city councilor of these fine folks. What you don't see today is probably about this many or more that can't be here today that have called me and are upset that we're having a public hearing at 3 o'clock. So I just want to pass that along and ask that you consider in the future moving public hearings to a time that's more convenient to the public. I will limit my comments to the letters that several folks, two people that cannot be here today, and they asked me as their representative to come and read these letters into the record. So if you don't mind, I'll do that quickly. I've become aware that an apartment complex is about to be built in Prattville. I'm sorry, this is from Travis and Gretchen Owens. They live at 842 Heather Drive. I've become aware that an apartment complex is about to be built in Prattville, adjoining the Pecan Ridge neighborhood. I'm also aware that a hearing will take place on Thursday, April 17th at 3 p.m. concerning this issue. First of all, I would like to express my frustration that such a meeting would take place at a time when most families are working and therefore not able to be in attendance. We have a right to be heard on this issue, as our families will be impacted should this complex be built. I would like you to express in no uncertain terms to the necessary persons that we're emphatically against the construction of any apartments in the area between, in, or around Gibson's Tire Pros and the Pecan Ridge subdivision off McQueen Smith Road. Our primary and ultimate concern here is the negative effect that any kind of apartment complex would have on the value of surrounding real estate, specifically the existing single-family homes within the surrounding neighborhoods such as Pecan Ridge subdivision and the Prattville East subdivision. Many families like my own do not have the resources to move at a moment's notice. By the time the moving becomes an option, the property values will have been negatively affected. The secondary concern is the already existing overload of traffic on this stretch of McQueen Smith. An entrance-exit into an apartment complex would make this stretch of road a travel nightmare. I would also like to ask you to recommend that in the area in question be rezoned for businesses and or residential subdivision for individual homes. This property is currently surrounded by these types of properties, and it makes better sense for it to remain one or the other rather than remaining zoned for apartments. There is abundance of apartments in the Prattville community. In fact, an apartment complex is in the process of being built just down the road. What the area needs more of is reasonably priced single-family homes. Sincerely, Travis and Gretchen Owens. The other one is by Pat and Pam Shirley. They reside at 1842 Seasons Drive. I would like you to make it extremely clear and in no uncertain terms to the necessary persons that we are against the construction of any apartments in the area between, in, and around Gibson's Tire and Pecan Ridge. We are concerned about the negative effect that any kind of apartments would have on the value of our homes, specifically the single-family homes within the Pecan Ridge neighborhood. The secondary concern is the already overloaded McQueen Smith Road. An entrance exit into apartment complex would make this stretch of road a travel nightmare. I'd also like this area to be rezoned for business or residential, not apartments. The property is currently surrounded by these types of properties, and it makes better sense for it to remain one or the other rather than being zoned for apartments. Sincerely, Pat and Pam Shirley. Thank you for allowing me to represent them here today by reading that into the record. Thank you.
Yes, Councilman Bowles.
May I ask, Mr. Chambliss, if we are able, and what I'd like to see is put a committee together to research this further, would you be willing to serve on that committee in your capacity as city councilor? Because if y'all don't know him, he's a brilliant engineer and he's worked on neighborhoods before, and I like the idea of trying to put a buffer between the neighborhood and seeing if we could get away out by Russell's instead of coming into the neighborhood. Would you be willing to serve on that if we could put that together?
I don't know that it's appropriate for me to actually serve on it, but I would certainly like to attend all the meetings and have input on it. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I might.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you. I know you and I have had conversation already about this, and I think you're serving your district well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Yes, sir. Come forward.
My name is Brandon Marvin. I live at 825 Heather Drive. It's the second to last house on the right before it dead ends. I've lived in Prattville the better part of my life. Only other place I've really lived is 732 Summer Lane, Prattville. I'd just like to say my wife will get on to me if I didn't point this out, but at the end of our street there's 10 kids. Right now, all 10 of those kids can go in the middle of the street and be just fine. You know, there's no problem with them playing out there. They don't have to worry about any cars coming in or out. And that is a peace of mind that you can't really put a price on. Another thing I'd like to point out is, what was that fancy word you used, sir? Race judicata, undecided. He said, you guys have already decided that this is going to happen, whether we like it or not. What I want to know is, has it been decided that it has to extend out through Heather Drive? I mean, I know they can put those apartments there if they want to, and that's fine. If that's the law and they paid for it and everything like that, they're going to put the apartments here. But if it's undecided, if it has to come out through Heather Drive and D Drive, then why not just say, okay, build your apartments, put that road out beside Russell Dewitt Center? And the reason I say that is because I know they said it has wetlands problem right there, and it might be a problem developing that. But if you have the money to put 96 apartments in there, then you definitely have the money to extend that road and put it right there and not have anything to do with Pecan Ridge and not mess with our traffic. Two other things I'd like to mention. I did some research, and it says there's approximately 89,000 empty homes in the southeast of the United States. There are plenty of places to live. They don't have to build something brand new right now over there, especially when they have something coming on 82 and McQueen Smith. And the last thing I'd like to say is, I just don't understand why they're four-laning Old Farm Lane or road, or wherever it is, extends out past 82, prioritizing that as opposed to McQueen Smith Road. I was told in 2008 that by 2012, the south end of McQueen Smith Road would be four-laned. And I was also told we were going to get a traffic light at Terra Drive and McQueen Smith, a very dangerous intersection. As it stands right now, if I pick my daughter up from school and I want to go back home to Pecan Drive, I drive all the way down and turn, I think it's Seasons Drive, and then I turn right on McQueen Smith to come up McQueen Smith and turn left onto Terra to get into that neighborhood. I never, ever drive across. That is dangerous. And wasn't it a couple years ago that a gentleman died on a motorcycle there? So I just hope you take those things into consideration. I appreciate everything.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is John Lee Finnegan. Excuse me, I live at 211 Deer Trace, just right over there. I don't live in that area. However, I shop there and I travel there, and that was the main reason I wrote the letter to the editor, was because of the traffic problem. However, when I was listening to everything, I just thought about something that before you is to rezone the area that is R5 and B2 to R4, correct? In that portion?
Yes, ma'am.
Why don't you reverse it and rezone the R4 to the R5, the single family, if something has to be built? If you can change that zoning, why can't you change the R4 zoning to R5? And that would be the single family homes. I mean, I'm just asking, that's the question I'm asking, and it just came up as I was sitting there. If you are rezoning something and changing it, why can't you rezone that and change it?
Can I answer that, or Mr. Duke?
No. That's just what came to mind, something to consider.
You can go ahead now.
No, I'll answer
Okay.
that. Rezoning has come at the request of the landowner. And the only way we could even consider that is if the developer or landowner makes that request.
So the developer could say, please rezone it,
He could.
and we'll make
Yeah.
single-family homes in there.
He could.
Okay.
You can convince him to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Catherine Black. I live at 107 Melvina Drive, or Place. Can you hear me in the back? Because I can shout, and I will. My husband and I currently live in 107 Melvina Place. We also bought 105 Melvina Place, which is the road that cul-de-sacs at the end of Heather Drive right now. We bought into that property, and we bought two properties because we loved that neighborhood so much. And I can stand here and I can talk to you about the aesthetics of the neighborhood, but you have to actually go there to understand what I'm talking about. I'm so happy that I see so many of my neighbors here that don't know me from Adam's House Cat because I just transferred up from Tyndall Air Force Base. The ones who do know me know that I just moved here because of a family crisis. And I don't want the time that I spend in my house to be interrupted by bulldozers coming through Heather Drive or construction workers coming in and out. And even after that, I don't want the traffic on Heather Drive. And I know you've heard this from other people, but the aesthetics are what drove us to the neighborhood. And I can talk to you all about the aesthetics and how nice the neighborhood is and how I and my neighbors appreciate what we have in our neighborhood. But as I said, you wouldn't understand unless you actually lived there. I understand progress. I know what progress is. I've been in Prattville since 1970, and so has my husband. So we have seen the progress. But I can tell you, this is not progress, and I'll wager to bet that everybody sitting here behind me will go along with me and say this is not progress. This is just something that we really don't want to see in our neighborhood. So if you can see it in your hearts, some way to circumvent this traffic that's going to come through Heather and reroute the apartment complex. I know it's done. I know it's in stone. I know it's already been rezoned for R4, and that doesn't elude me. But if you can reroute that traffic onto Cobb's Ford, I would be grateful. I know my neighbors would be grateful. Anybody that comes into that neighborhood before us or after us will be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I would like to make one additional comment. I'm a retired banker, and I spent my time in real estate. And I can tell you, in my hometown, where low-income apartments went in next to subdivisions, it was a disaster. Chief, you better put more men on, because you're going to have more crime. You're going to have more wrecks. You're going to have more problems. Now, I ask each and every one of you, starting with the mayor right on down, if this was going in, if this was being proposed next to your property, would you vote yes? None of you would say yes. So I asked you, why would you vote yes to put it next to all of these people right here's property? Tell me why. Thank you.
Any other comments? I close the public hearing. We'll read it in. We need to read it in the record. It's not over. We just closed the public, the speaking part. We're continuing with the meeting. But we are continuing the meeting. And again, we are all, just like you, we're here on a voluntary basis. We're here to represent the city of Prattville and what's in the best interest of Prattville. Mr. Under 2 it is. Can you read it in? I got it right here.
Resolution rezoning request B2 and R5 to R4, McQueen Smith Road and Cobbs Ford Road, MHL Inc. Petitioner, April 17, 2014. Whereas MHL Inc. has applied for rezoning of the property in attachment, and whereas Airnov Land Company is the owner of the property, and whereas the property to be rezoned is located inside the city limits on the east side of McQueen Smith Road and the northern ends of D Drive and Heather Drive, and whereas the petitioner wishes to rezone the property from B2 General Business and R5 Patio Garden Homes to R4 Multifamily Residential, and whereas a public hearing on the proposed zoning was held by the Prattville Planning Commission on April 17, 2014. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Prattville Planning Commission hereby recommends the rezoning of said property from B2 and R5 to R4. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I believe I had a motion from Mr. Bowles. Were you discussing wanting a meeting? Or subcommittee meeting?
Do we need a second this in so we can talk about it?
Okay.
Okay, I'll do that second so we can
Okay.
talk about it.
All right.
I would personally like us to hold this for a month to 5 years. If we could, but we really need to have a subcommittee meeting.
We don't have one. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, but we need to hold this and seriously have a subcommittee meeting with Mr. Duke. I'm going to invite representative from District 5 there and see what we can do to resolve this situation. But until we can do that, my vote would absolutely be no. Thank you.
I would concur with Councilman Bowles' recommendation that we hold and form a committee. Our job is to recommend, to give the city council's best recommendation and something that they can support, be it yay or nay. And I guess we can't quite do that yet, and we need to get a place where we can.
That sounds right.
And so I would agree with that. Let's form a committee, meet with the developer, Mr. Duke. Okay, thank you. And by our next meeting, have some recommendation as for how the planning commission is.
Would you be willing to serve on the subcommittee?
Certainly.
Would you be? Oh, I'm sorry. There's a motion to move it to a subcommittee, and there was a second. All in favor of a subcommittee? signify.
And holding.
And holding. Signify, raise your, any opposed? All right, I guess we can form that subcommittee. Mr. Bowles, would you be willing to?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. McCauley? Also, and would you, Chief? All right, we got 3 folks. I guess that's what we need, and we will get with Mr. Duke on that matter shortly. Since it is going to subcommittee, some of you will be interested in when it does go to the City Council. And it will, Mr. Duke, you have, I take it it's going to be June 3rd that it would go before the, or talk to me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you're accurate. If you were to approve it today, it would come up first meeting in May, but it's obviously not going to be the case. Your recommendation, if you make it at your May meeting, will cause us to appear on the City Council's agenda on June the 3rd. At that time, they will read it for the first time and set a public hearing. They will not act on it on June 3rd. So the public hearing will be set for, I believe I wrote down July the 1st for you. So the hearing before the City Council, if you were to make a recommendation at your next meeting, would be July the 1st. And that would be 6:00 p.m. right here in this room.
Okay.
Before the City Council.
Thank you, sir.
If you do not deal with it at your next meeting, if you postpone it again, that obviously that time will shift.
Yes, sir. Yes, go ahead.
Since there's so many people here and we have decided to go into committee, and obviously a lot of people like me and you don't know how this works, we just merely recommend to the City Council what a recommendation would be. But I do have a couple of questions since there's so many people here.
Yes, ma'am.
That I would like to ask the developer.
Absolutely.
On the proposed rezoning request, whoever can speak for the developer. Does the developer, can you know?
Okay.
On the proposed rezoning, I guess what color was it? The pink or?
The pink.
The pink part.
Pink.
Yeah, that one.
No, the blue part.
The blue part.
The blue part. You said that approximately, because everybody is here now, and I think it's important with everybody here. On the 3, you said of that portion of blue, approximately 3 acres is buildable? 3.06. And the pink portion is approximately 10.7 acres, is that correct? I think it says 10.7 here.
I would say that's approximately 10 acres. I don't have the exact.
Because, I mean, I'm looking at this. It says 10.7.
Well, the 10, what you're looking at on there is the layout of the first phase. And
Right.
The layout of the first phase stops here at this blue line, so there's additional property that's already zoned
okay, well.
R4 that's outside that 10 acres.
Okay. So my question is, if this was all rezoned for apartments, it'd be 160 units proposed.
That's currently what's proposed. That's correct.
So 96 units is already zoned for apartments, correct?
That's correct, and they could actually.
So that's 60% of the property is 96 units. If I did my, and you want to put 64 units on 40% of the property.
That's approximately correct, but those
Okay.
are rough numbers.
I just wanted to make sure.
And there,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'd like to be known, my feelings on this. I certainly am in favor of a builder, property owner using it for his highest and best use of that property. But I have severe problems with building a nice neighborhood. I live in one that was ruined by some heavy equipment right behind my house, but that's another thing. Build a nice neighborhood, get people in there like you, and it's really bad to come in there later with a humongous set of apartments. I know that that's the highest best use of the property, I assume, because you're going to make more money with apartments than you can building houses, selling houses. But those houses are there. They should be the same houses built on that property. And if I have anything that I can do in making this honorable, right for everybody, I'm going to do my best to make it right for everybody. And that's my uneducated opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Duke? Go ahead, Mr. Duke.
Mr. Smith, just a procedural matter. This item has been held.
I know.
Okay.
It has, and I allowed that. I apologize. Let's move on. We have. You can wait around. We are going to go to subcommittee on that matter of the apartment complex, and we will. There will be a public announcement of when that subcommittee is. There will be a public announcement of the subcommittee, and y'all are more than welcome to attend the meeting of the subcommittee between the developers and the members.
Check the city website.
Check the city website, and it will be on the city website.
Can that public meeting be something besides 3 in the afternoon so we have more people there?
Yes, sir, it can be, and we will see what we can do on that, Mr. Duke. That can be accomplished. All right, we have one last item on the agenda. Is that correct? We do have one last. It is the replat of Habitat of Humanity property. Is there something to read in on that one?
No, sir. This is a.
Are you on the way? Go ahead. Okay, we have 5-minute recess. I need to get. All right, we are going to go on with our meeting. Mayor, can you join us? Councilman, Commissioner McCauley.
That's up for discussion.
That was like your name a second ago. Sorry. I've known you for 10 years. I can't do it sometimes, Al. I'm living forever. Okay.
That's the person you need to go after. You've been sitting next to fire department for how long?
I hadn't seen that dude.
Yeah. I should have got you on there, but I want to put the fire department on there. Okay. I got to put Mr. Nelson on there too. Yeah. All right. We have a replat for Habitat for Humanity, McHenry Plat 1, located at 201 McHenry Street. And it's a Habitat for Humanity house. Meharry. I'm sorry, McHenry Street. What did I say? Meharry.
Yes, sir. As y'all have seen several times before, this Habitat for Humanity has been able to acquire some vacant property throughout the College Heights neighborhood, and this is a parcel that was previously occupied, but it was platted originally in the College Heights neighborhood as two 25-foot wide lots, and the replat is essentially erasing that center lot line. It should have been done so many years ago, but I'll say this for the Habitat folks there. They're good about making sure that these issues are cleared up and dealt with, and this is the proper way to do it. Basically, This slide is showing what it looks like now, but the original plat shows a lot line down the middle. This is just a replat to erase that center lot line. We certainly recommend approval. This is just a housekeeping matter.
I move we approve as proposed.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Is there any new business? Any business? Go ahead. Any old, new business? All right, meeting adjourned.